Folks, we have a very special guest today on a weekend edition of Frost Bites. We're switching it up on you. Very excited to be joined by Maya, who covers the Vancouver Goldeneyes for the Ice Garden. Maya, how the heck are you? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm good. Somehow we're at the last game of the season and I was leaving the rink yesterday and I was just like really sad that it's over. Like I don't really know what I'm going to be doing next year and who knows who will even be in Vancouver next year with the expansion and stuff, and it was just like wow, we're done.
Yeah, not to get too far into this before we get started, but I kind of feel like our teams are at such different stages where I feel like I've been able to kind of put that off and pretend that that doesn't exist yet. I was leaving the last home regular season game and was able to be like, okay, at least we have one more of these. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, for you and for Vancouver, it feels like, yeah, it feels like it's coming to an end, which is sad.
It is sad. And yeah, it is interesting to be like on the end of the wrapping down of the season and stuff like that, which works out well for my bank account and my plans, but not so well for like the team because you always wish that you were in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So this is a great segue. Let's talk about today's game. We've got last game of the season, Vancouver, Minnesota. We're in Vancouver. We are kind of Frost centric on this show. Could you kind of set the stage for where Vancouver is at coming into this game, and what's kind of happened recently for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting season, for better or for worse, I think. We on pretty much every show that I ever talk about this team, including my own show, it's always so didn't we all predict that the Golden Eyes and Torrent were gonna be like at the top of the league and everybody else was gonna have a terrible season? And that's kind of the opposite of what happened, which at least I wasn't the only person who predicted that they would be successful, so that makes me feel happy.
I would just like to shout out, don't look at any of my other predictions, but I think I did have Montreal. I think mainly only because Vancouver, and we did a whole show where we talked about
Mhm.
our predictions, but only because I wanted to pick something else. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
No, good choice because it looks like they might get that. But yeah, so basically a tale of kind of I think two different types of teams is kind of what we've been looking at this season. There's the team that showcases the absolute firepower that they have and the skill that they have. But we've only seen that team, I would say, three or four, maybe five times this season. And what we normally get is a team that doesn't look like they really know where the other players are going to be on the ice. They have a lot of turnovers in the defensive zone. They're maybe not getting to the front of the net. Their shots are coming from the perimeter, and they're not scoring very many goals. So at home, we tend to see the stronger looking Golden Eyes. I think they really feed on the crowd and being in Vancouver, which is good for them going into Saturday. Not as great for Minnesota. But yeah, it's been so strange because, I looked at the Montreal and Minnesota matchups that they had coming into the end of the season and looking at gold plan points, and I thought they weren't going to get any, and then they got three against Montreal. So anything could happen on Saturday, whichever team decides to show up.
Yeah, yeah. The I'm curious about the goal scoring issues because I feel like that just it like you were saying, like it just feels so. You look at that roster, especially going into the season, and it sort of feels like, well, they're going to be able to score goals. I mean, a couple offensive sort of defenders that like Frost fans are very know very
Hmm.
well. A couple forwards as well. Like I think the goal scoring is the most maybe surprising thing from sort of a outside perspective, I guess.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I actually use the Frost as kind of a comparison of what I think a goal scoring team is. Because people will often say, oh, there are players on the Golden Eyes who can score. And absolutely there are, as you mentioned, like Jakes, Thompson, Nurse. Gardner had 4 goals the other day for some reason. Um,
That was
but
crazy.
Yeah, it was so crazy, but we're not seeing goal production at the level that we're seeing from like a Kelly Panic or a Taylor Heisey. Um there's nobody that can really be relied on to be scoring every single night. And so when the right players get hot and they get one or two in a game, or they maybe get like a couple in a row, that's great. But I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I don't think there's very many players who have been on a streak of any kind this season in terms of scoring, because there's just really not that like replication of goal scoring game after game.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I feel like compared to Minnesota, I just think one of the things about the Frost forwards, especially the top six, that I think makes it so consistent is that player types, I think, really fit well with each other.
Hmm.
Where you've got multiple players like maybe a Zumwinkle or a Heisey who sort of, and Kendall Coyne Schofield, who like can have the puck on their stick all the time, and then players like Panic who don't need it and can sort of find spaces and things like that. I think they just have
Hmm.
a number of different ways to score, and types of players, to get those goals. So
I
yeah.
agree. That's my biggest concern going into today's game for the Goldeneyes. And I actually asked Brian Adelsky about it because Montreal, especially without Pooh, they're not a super offensive team. Like they win a lot of games with their goaltending and their defense, but Minnesota is an offensive team. And I don't think that you can have the kind of breakdown that the Golden Eyes had against Montreal, where they let in 3 goals in 3 minutes in like the exact identical fashion, against a team like Minnesota. Like to me, I think there will be a lot more goals coming from Minnesota, and he was basically saying that like the Frosts are really good in the neutral zone, and any turnovers that the Golden Eyes defensive zone create, like that they either Minnesota creates for themselves or that the Golden Eyes give them, is like really, really dangerous. So he said if they're playing good defensively, then the Golden Eyes will be fine. But I think the offensive power of the Frost is intimidating when you don't necessarily know that you can get 4 or 5 goals from the Golden Eyes players.
Yeah, totally. And we can touch on this in part two when we talk playoffs a little bit, but that neutral zone, and we've seen, I think, a lot
Mm-hmm.
from Boston and Montreal as well, though. If you can slow the Frost down a little bit in the neutral zone, and if you have those defenders that can break the puck out against Boston, or like Boston, you watch that game, we've just seen them play Boston a lot, and you watch for 40 minutes and you're like, they have 10 shots, the Frost have 10 shots on goal, and I don't know how they're going to score a goal.
Yeah.
So it can be shut down, but yeah, that neutral zone, you got to break the puck out clean. You talked about the gold plan, or you mentioned gold plan points just initially. Could you
Mm-hmm.
just touch on that a little bit, what you've thought of it so far, and sort of what's at stake for the Golden Eyes in this game in terms of the goal plan?
Yeah, I think it's been really exciting this year
Mm-hmm.
to watch. Like in the past, New York has just kind of been like the fail team, and they've just been down there getting their own points and it hasn't
Yeah,
really mattered. It's really fun to kind of have that competition and to be doing all of the like, okay, now that this team has won this team it can't get it, and all of this stuff. Like it's so
yeah,
interesting. What was really interesting is that I don't think it's quite as interesting for the players. I don't think they have quite as much of a stake in it as we as the media and the fans do. Sarah Nurse was talking to the media on Thursday because it was the 1 year anniversary of the Vancouver Goldeneyes being a thing. And yeah, she was saying like I don't even know where we are in the gold point standings, whereas like all of us are over here like how can we like get 1 point, where can we like make up these points? And so I think it's great, and I think like it adds something for the fans, but I don't really think the players are as like, I think the players just want to win games. I don't think it's that important to them about if the other teams that they're against are winning games or not.
yeah, that's such a fascinating point. I feel like we heard a bit from it was Kelly Panic post game, after the game against Toronto, the last home game, and I would describe her comments on the gold plan of also almost just a little. intrigued almost. She seemed
Mm-hmm.
curious, just kind of about if it would impact the play style of the games and things like that. And if I remember right, she brought it up.
Mm.
But yeah, it is. I mean, especially with, and we don't have to get into expansion today. I don't want to talk about that. But yeah, I
Mhm.
wonder for the
And
players
that's
just
I think that's definitely a thing, like, everybody is playing with so much uncertainty right now, like,
totally,
if you're if you're on a team right now, you're playing especially if you're not thinking about playoffs right now, you're playing for your job next year, but you're also playing to either stay in the city that you're in or be interesting enough to be taken in the expansion draft, or you're
totally,
playing to get like protected. And no matter what happens with the gold plan, like this is a high level player that's coming into the organization out of the draft, whether you're first or fourth. And depending on who you are on those teams, that could be your job that that person's taking. So there's so many of these little like details that the players are thinking about that we're not thinking about, I think.
yeah. It's such a good point, and I wonder if maybe years down the line when things feel a little bit more settled, like maybe it
Mhm.
would become something that the players are more engaged in the same way that the fans are. But I love what you said about just like with so much uncertainty right now, it's there's a lot up in the air for players for
Mhm.
sure. Let's talk playoffs if that's okay with you,
Yeah, let's
because
do it.
I'm curious for your opinions on sort of what you think is going to happen here. We can start with the fourth spot coming down to the
Mhm.
last day. Very fun. Uh, who's getting in? What do you think?
I think that it not being in Toronto is actually a win for Toronto because they've been having a terrible season at the Coca-Cola Coliseum. Um, and if it was in Toronto, I'd be saying I think Ottawa's taking this. I think Ottawa has the upper hand, and that could prove to be the difference maker here, just like Toronto not being able to pull it off in regulation.
Yeah.
But it is so close. And I was kind of like thinking, what would I want to see? And like those teams are so similar in my mind too, that
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, I think they'll have a similar like I don't know, level of success in the playoffs, but I think I'll give it to Ottawa the slight boost because I mentioned this when I was talking to Alyssa earlier this week
Yeah.
on my podcast, but playoff Gwyneth Phillips is just like a whole other level. And if she is in that mode on Saturday and then can get the team into the playoffs, then I don't think that they're as like weak of a team as they might seem right now because we've seen it, like she was a rookie last year and she was the difference between them getting to the final and not. So yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
What do
Totally.
you
And
think?
um I lean Ottawa. I lean Ottawa too. To be frank, wasn't super impressed with Toronto last time we saw them. I know they did beat the Frost 2-0. But it felt like a game where, I mean, goaltending was great, but it felt like a game where the Frost created a lot. Um, and I think playoff time, this time of year, I go goaltending, and I think Gwyneth Phillips, like, that's the edge for me.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really feeling quite confident, and I don't know how you feel about this, but it's hard for me to see anyone beating Montreal or Boston in the first round. You know, I think about this from a Frost perspective. They're kind of locked into number three. You know, first place still up for grabs too. I think if I was Minnesota, I would want to play Montreal, and maybe that's just because
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota has seen a lot of Boston recently. But I mean, and it also seems silly to want to play Montreal. That doesn't seem like a good strategy either. You don't really have a good option. Like, I think, and of course it won't go like this because it never does. But those top two seats to me really feel like there is a gap between 3 and 4 and 1 and 2.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Minnesota is a dangerous team like 80% of the time. So I also think of them like on as somebody who's a little bit outside of the team and not watching them every game as still like a contender, especially because we know that they just randomly show up and win 2 Walter Cup champions. Like there is nobody else who's done that. Um the concern for me about Montreal is they usually find themselves in this position and then they never made it to the championship. So if they can figure out what that reason is and stop doing that, that yes, I don't think you can bet against them. Like they are just a complete team. Goaltending is great, defense is great, offense is great. Especially Poulin, I think, is with the team now and will be there for the end of the season and into the playoffs. If she's there, then like it's really hard to bet against them. But yeah, I think both of those teams are really, really strong. The only thing that's like kind of like giving me pause is just that we often see the top team go out. So I just don't know what it is about the playoffs that does that to that team. Um, so it's hard to say yes.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel silly saying it, but it feels like, especially Boston, like maybe less of a complete team as
Mhm.
Montreal, but feels like they are just like built perfectly for playoff hockey, like goaltending, defenders, chip in like just enough offense as much as
Mhm.
as they need. And again, I think the Frost have had a couple games with them in the past month, but I am just so impressed with like how detailed that team is, how good they are at getting pucks out of their zone. And then again, like it's never a ton of offense, but it's enough offense to kind of keep them moving along.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I can go into this when we do my Frost previews, playoff preview, so we don't have to do it all now. But like Minnesota is 0-8. They didn't win a single, or they won one game. They win one game. Yes, they beat Boston once. Sorry, they beat
Mm.
Boston once. So one win in 8 tries against Montreal and Boston. Um,
Wow.
Outscored pretty bad. Didn't beat Boston once this season. Um, so again, it's the playoffs, but
Yeah. Well,
I don't
and for
know.
me, I mean, you're the expert here, but to me, the one thing about Minnesota that gives me pause, is the
Let's say it.
goaltending.
I was going to say, let's say it together.
Sorry,
Goaltending. No, no,
goaltending.
totally, totally.
Um, and like I don't know, the game against Seattle, I didn't watch like 100% of it, but I was just kind of like, oh, you need to get a save here or there, especially against Seattle. And so that is like the one thing that makes me nervous against Montreal or Boston for Minnesota is just keeping the puck out of the net because you can score a lot of goals, which is great, but can you against Davian and Frankel, and can you match the number of goals that they're scoring on you?
Totally. Yep. Totally. I mean, it sounds too simple, but it's goaltending 100%. And
Mhm.
it's felt like that in the games against Boston too, where the goaltending hasn't been bad, but there's a goal or there's a moment where it's like you need that has to be a save because you can't go down 2 goals against Boston
Mhm.
in some situations. I think what feels odd to me is combined Rooney and Hensley have been better this season than in the past,
Mhm.
and I still don't really feel like that much more confident about the whole thing going into the playoffs. Like I think they've been switching off pretty good here, as things have been locked up, and Rooney has been better recently. So I would
Mhm.
imagine she will start. I would guess. Um, but yeah, I think it's really as simple as they're going to go as far as the goaltending takes them, and they're going to need it to be really good again.
Which is kind of, yeah, I think it's interesting because in the first season there was a lot of talk about how you have this Minnesota team that has two goaltenders that can play pretty much every game, you can kind of go back and forth. Whereas with most of the other teams, they have their one starter and then their backup. And now we have a few more teams, or I think you could say Vancouver and Seattle both have two goalies that can play, but it's just interesting to kind of see that as now we're seeing it as a disadvantage because they don't have like a Dabian or a Frankel, when in the past it was like their kind of like special thing that they had.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because it feels like, yeah, sort of one or the other has stepped up at times. Like Hensley had a really good run. Nicole Hensley did to start the season. Maddie Rooney's been better late. We're sort of waiting, I feel like, for one of them to really put it together. And obviously, like in the playoffs in the past two seasons, they have. Um, and again, I think like we said, like I think that's just what it's going to come down to for them. I think one of them, they don't have to be the best goalie in the playoffs, but one of them has to be quite good to keep Minnesota in these games, especially against teams like Montreal, teams like Boston, where it is just so hard to score goals.
Yeah. Perfect time to do it, though, when
Yeah,
there's a cup on the line.
perfect time to do it, and they've done it in the past, which makes me still kind of feel silly for counting them out. But I mean, whether it is going to be Boston or Montreal for Minnesota, like I mean, even
It'll be
just
tough.
yeah, and even just based on the regular season, like I don't know how they have, Minnesota's going to be an underdog
Yeah.
either way, but it's worked for them in the
Totally.
past. So
Exactly.
who knows? Let's bring it back to today's game here before we finish off. Just curious, one thing you're watching from a Goldeneyes perspective. I think for the Frost, not to jump the line, but for the Frost to go first, like I mean, I really think it's goaltending. I'm not sure who's playing tonight yet or this afternoon. We'll see. But with their spot locked in, with our 30-point Panic and Heisey, our 30-point players reaching that mark, was something I was watching pretty closely. I think it's goaltending. It's never too early to start a good run, and I think Minnesota will want to. They've lost a couple games in a row, being sort of locked in here. I think they'll want to start building towards the playoffs.
Totally. That momentum piece, I think, is like, why not get your playoffs started by beating a team, even if they're not like the best team? You have more confidence going in if you beat Vancouver than if you don't, I feel like.
Totally.
For the Goldeneyes, honestly, like, I think it's just ending on a high note. Like this season, it's not a secret to anybody that this is not how any of the players or the coaching staff or the GM wanted the season to go. I think in front of their fans, it's Pride Night and fan celebration night. It's
great.
Probably going to be hopefully a good crowd. Just like putting all of the pieces together to have a strong game, whether you get the win or the loss. It's the less turnovers. It's getting good shots. It's going to the net. It's, I don't know, playing better in the defensive zone. I think we'll see Mashmeyer in net because I know Adalski wanted to have each of them get one more game. He told us a couple weeks ago. So Campbell played the other night. So I think it'll be Mashmeyer. And yeah, I think just a complete game so that it doesn't feel like we're ending the season on a low note. I mean, obviously you want to see them get the maximum number of points that they can get, because Seattle could also get the maximum number of points they can get. And if they do, they will win the gold plan. And with everything up in the air about if you finish second, you don't necessarily get the second pick, I think just take responsibility and win, control what you can control, and that's getting the win. So, but if it's not a win and it's just like a game that doesn't feel like a horrible loss, I think that will be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a good send off for fans on fan appreciation and Pride Night sounds like a good plan. Maya, thank you so much for doing this. Do you have any work you want to shout out? Anything? I know you mentioned your podcast.
Yeah, so I have a podcast on the Nine Sports. It's just the Nine Sports podcast. I do the Thursday hockey show. Reid's been on at least once, maybe just once, but we'll definitely be coming back because you're one of my favorite co-hosts I've ever had. So Definitely Reid will be coming back. And then, yeah, I tweet a lot about hockey and other things. Maya X every sport. And yeah, but definitely if you can support the Nine and the Ice Garden, we always appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. Again, Maya, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for doing this.